Well, welcome everyone to a session that is a recap of a session that we did at DevSecCon 24 in 2021, a couple of weeks back. And we're excited to re-record this discussion about LGBTQIA+ in tech and have some concerns that we can't recreate it perfectly, but do hope that you'll come along with us on the journey. So with us are Heidi and Nathan. I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in a moment. But today's discussion is really going to be around fostering the sense of inclusion, while recognizing also that last month, many of us around the world celebrated Pride Month and the amazing LGBTQ community. The goal in this next 20 or so minutes is going to be to educate a little bit further, to celebrate, to drive responsible growth for our companies through this notion of inclusion, celebration, allyship, et cetera, and encourage becoming comfortable. There's a lot of folks who are very uncomfortable as their organizations become diverse. And I think that it's sometimes okay to call out that elephant in the room and get right to it. You know, we don't all come from exactly the same backgrounds, but that doesn't mean that we can't get along beautifully and create really great companies and great cultures together. So the audience for this was, again, the audience that came of the thousands of developers that came to the DevSecCon conference sponsored by Sneak here a while back. And we really do hope that this helps all of our colleagues out in the industry better understand that, hey, some of our colleagues really need to be heard. And if we allow all perspectives at the table, again, we're going to all build better companies. So if Heidi and Nathan, you could just introduce yourselves briefly, then I'll pepper you with some good questions and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So
let me start by saying quickly, sorry, Heidi, I'm Brian. I lead Impact, which means social and environmental governance impact here at Sneak. And am just ecstatic that a focus area for us broadly across the industry is going to be create more inclusion, equity, belonging in our industry generally. As software is built and software is made more secure, I think we can do that in a more inclusive way as well as we go. So I'll pause there. I'm in California. I'm going to pick up my friends that are elsewhere in the world, and also in lovely places. Heidi, over to you. Sorry about that.
No, you are absolutely fine. Absolutely. So I am Heidi. I am based in London and I lead go-to-market recruitment here, part of a wider talent team, but you will find myself speaking to people globally about all sales roles that join us here. Obviously, D&I is something at my core. LGBTQ+ is something that is close to my heart and something that I think needs more awareness. And I myself, I know that we like to call out our pronouns. I am she and her.
And I am he, him, cisgender, white guy, totally love first is how I enter the room.
Thank you both. Hey, so I'm Nathan Manning. I'm the lead people partner for R&D and G&A at Sneak. I'm a he, him, cis gay male, and from New Zealand originally, but based in London. Yeah, I think I covered everything, right?
Yeah. Yes.
A lot of stats. And
I have to remember every time I covered everything, because I always forget things. But yes, that's me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I think that with the way this discussion can flow, it would be, I think, really great for us to start with a pretty broad topic, this topic that some people got exposed to in the past few months or year around the world that didn't know about it first, but it's allyship and this notion of being an ally in your life or in your work life at work. And then what allyship means, not just in the professional context, but here at Sneak. So Heidi, maybe I'll start with you. What's an ally for you and in work and here at Sneak where we work?
Absolutely. So for me, allyship is something that is an extremely strong calling for me, but can mean lots of different things for other people. But it's someone who's going to support equality, right? Whether that's gender, LGBT, social movements. It's challenging things like homophobia, transphobia, anything where we're seeing where someone is not being treated as equal as, or is given a forum to be themselves. And I think being an ally is identifying that we have the power to help people within that community. So here at Sneak, I know that obviously social impact program was something that I mentioned when we did this the first time round, and it's something that obviously, Brian, you're very heavily involved in. But our social impact program here at Sneak is a community where we promote that inclusive environment and provide equal opportunity. So we have things like Sneak for Good, where we focus on charities close to our community. Last month, these were very heavily, I think I mentioned about Annie's Place, which is a safe haven for people to go to from the LGBT community. We have things to do with all types of actual challenges that people face in different types of community, but we've got anti-LGBTQ plus violence projects, and we work on things like this. And although we celebrate Pride and we do recognise that importance, we actually maintain these activities every day of the year. And we have tailored policies. So I myself on the recruitment team, we make sure that we use inclusive language on all of our external pages to do with how we're hiring. We make sure that our hiring managers are agreeing to a different type of working to maybe what they're used to, where we try and make sure that everyone has that equal opportunity and we remove that bias. Internal, we have our Sneak resource group, so that can be LGBTQ community. We have Slack channels. We have, people of different race maybe who might want a forum to have that safe space. So there's so many ways in which Sneak is an ally as a company. And it gives the opportunity for people to be placed at the forefront of our minds as employees, but also gives a forum for people to enter in as much allyship as they feel comfortable to. So although I would consider myself a strong ally, for some people who maybe not, it might not come naturally to, we give that empowerment to say whichever level of allyship you feel comfortable with, we would welcome.
Love it, love it. And so allyship, as you see it then, is this notion of the concept of creating equity in your approaches, in your just general operating approach, but that also companies can be proactive at fostering allyship and teeing that up in a more structural way, even or through activities, through learning opportunities and so on. Nathan, over to you. Any thoughts on allyship?
I was going to say there were two things that Heidi was saying that sort of really like resonated with me, and I think there was the one that this concept that being an ally just isn't just during Pride, right? Like it's all year round, and it's like creating that sort of environment or that I guess platform where your people feel like they're comfortable to sort of embrace it at their own pace or step in as much as they want to. Like, for me as a gay man in this organization, it's great that I do feel like I can be myself and sort of I don't have to be forced into the spotlight at a certain event just to be a token sort of, I guess, gay champion or something like that. It's more I can do it because I want to, and Sneak helps provide that platform. So I think that's really ultimately it, right? Giving people that platform, that space to be comfortable themselves, and then also being consistent too. It's not just a rainbow logo to put on for 1 month of the year. It's all the time.
So the allyship, if it's authentic, if it's pure, then it kind of lives in the organization throughout the way the organization conducts itself, and it's not a marketing campaign, or it's not a surface level thing. It's a receptivity, it's a supportiveness, and it's an authentic way of operating all around the year. Well, that I think might tie then into, and I don't know for sure where these two topics differ, but Nate, I go over to you. What might it mean for all of the employees at Sneak or in another organization to be able to bring their quote whole self into that environment? We read a lot about psychological safety as being a real factor for people being successful in their careers. I think that probably ties into it. But is there this notion of bringing your whole self to work that when it's at the forefront really does benefit organizations? Do you have any thoughts around that whole self to work concept?
So many on this one. I mean, like, from someone who spent so much of his time of his life in the closet pretending I wasn't gay, I can tell you how painfully jarring it is to be living a lie, and then to be able to sort of like shrug that off and actually come to terms of who you are and be comfortable in yourself, your authentic self, whatever that is. That's so empowering. It's just, and I guess to flip it, it's exhausting living that lie all the time, right? So you can't, if you're not being yourself, it's just so dissatisfying. So to be able to do that, to bring yourself to work, means that you can, I guess, I don't know, I think it blocks in every way. Like if you're lying to yourself, it shows in every way. So just get rid of that, to create that environment where people can come to work and feel authentic, I guess, their whole self. That means you're getting the real people, the diverse people. I don't know. I mean, it's not even about the diversity, but it's just, I hated living a lie. So I think this one really resonates with me because you just, sucks. I don't know what else to say on that one.
So safe to say, if you've got an organization where people aren't feeling welcome, or they don't feel like they're true, that the reality that they feel best in living is constrained, then of course they're not going to be available to do their best work and connect deeply and lean in to the mission of what they're doing together, if they don't feel safe or they don't feel welcome.
Yeah,
and
sorry. Yeah,
no,
I think a little bit more deeply to it, it's like, I can think of some organizations where I'd probably be a bit apprehensive about coming out again still. Even now, I might not be as open about my sexuality. I might be like, it maybe isn't as relevant, and I maybe might start to stifle it, which is straight away like a red flag, red flag, red flag. And it's like, oh, I'm regressing. No. And that's like, no, straight away, you won't be doing your best work. So an organization like Sneak, where I didn't ever feel like I had to sort of dim my light or my honest self, is really, really important.
I think that's a great way to put it. Like if you really want to create a high voltage, successful, energetic, connected culture, then if people feel unsafe, that light's going to remain dim, and no company with dim lights are sustainable. Of all the ones I've worked for that weren't welcoming, their light dimmed, and so did their business. So Heidi,
correlation.
I could see direct correlation. Heidi, do you have a thought here on this notion of whole self?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But this goes into everything that I shout about on a day-to-day basis. You know, I do a lot of public speaking and other forums, which is about actually how we're responsible, each of us in the hiring process, to highlight what a company's about. And here at Sneak, I talk about the fact that we are a business built by humans who hire humans to bring their full self. And if you feel in any way that that's an environment you won't flourish in, then you need to evaluate, is this somewhere that I should be? Whereas if we constantly open up, you know, I know on Glassdoor someone wrote, interviewing at Sneak is like looking through a pane of glass. It's transparent. If we maintain this transparency around the fact that we are a welcoming company, we are open to learning about every, you know, differing community that's out there, whether that is the subject that we're talking about today or something else. If we maintain those values of constantly having that open arm environment, I think, yeah, absolutely, that's where people can flourish.
And are there topics that at times, and Nathan, I'll direct this one at you, just as you identify as a gay male, are there topics that can be seen as offensive? Are there things that dim your light? Are there things that shut you down that people in businesses need to be aware of, especially in businesses that are maybe less receptive, but are trying hard to learn about allyship, you know, as a step toward more inclusion?
Yeah, great question. I think I'm like, firstly, I won't try and speak for everyone on this, right? I'm just one person with my own views here, and I won't sort of try and take credit for all the work that's been done before me by, you know, countless allies and champions and trans people and gay men and women and everyone doing that in the past. But for me, I think it's really important to think through the intent behind what people are trying to achieve here, right? So like if people are curious and want to learn, like that's really, really good. Equally, I think there's intent, but then there's also how you deliver it too. And I think certain subjects or certain things can offend and will offend depending on how they're framed. And I think depending on where you're going with it, I mean, like certain topics, depending on the nature, like I think like taking it as a contextual thing, sometimes people get curious about the sex aspect of it. It's like, would you ask a straight person that question? I think is always a really, really good rule to have there, you know, or, I mean, is it appropriate for work? Or I guess think that through, you know, if you wouldn't ask it to a straight person, I wouldn't ask it to, I wouldn't raise it as a topic for someone else. It just seems, what's the point? Again, equally, if you are curious to learn about things, you can frame them in a way that is like, a lot of people are keen to share and discuss their views and knowledge and help educate too. So I think it comes down to, yeah, again, intent and how you would deliver it for sure.
So the intent and having the positive intent, as opposed to maybe just like writing a stereotype directly into a conversation or venturing too quickly into territory that maybe isn't safe or is a place where all parties involved in that conversation feel that same intent, that positive.
Intent.
And
the intent should be to try and like get to know someone, care about them, understand them better, right? It shouldn't be like a grotesque fascination or something that some people have or something like that, you know. That's just completely off, and that will land and that will show and that'll read, and that's straight away just an offensive conversation. Like it's just not on. yeah.
Yeah, there's not much else to play on that one, right? It's just like, if it's wrong, it's just wrong, and it's really bad. Now,
Yeah.
are there ways, and Heidi, I'll bring you in on this thread as well. Are there things that are less appropriate, even though I think the three of us are very animated people, we're very open-minded people, we're very open generally, which isn't always overly corporate, but that said, are there things that are quote unquote corporate, but are there things that are just flat inappropriate that people out there need to be aware of in their company cultures?
Absolutely. And I think Nathan hit it on the head there, which is, if you wouldn't ask, a straight person it, don't ask the community of LGBTQ, right? And I think that's part of it. I think the one thing I'd take away is that everyone always has the best intentions. I don't think anyone comes into a conversation and goes, hey, so how gay actually are you? With the idea of, hey, I want to be a bit malicious here or stir that pot. I think it's a case of, actually, I want to educate myself, but actually it's done in a forum that is not conventional. It's just not acceptable, right? If you're doing it in front of other people, you might be seen as doing it for a reaction or to get attention because somebody else has attention. And so therefore you want to kind of like pull it back to you a little bit or share that light. And that's not always the best. I think the best way to approach this, and I'm sure we've seen this in our lives, is that actually taking someone away from the scenario and going, look, you've obviously welcomed me into a situation here where you shared a piece of information, how would you like me to refer to this? Some people are a case of, what, I'm gay, I'm proud, and I'm happy to talk about it, and you can talk about it, and I'm not shy. Awesome, that's great. However, unless somebody's categorically told you that, then as far as you're concerned, you shouldn't really be talking about it at all. Somebody else's business is theirs. A lot like how, if a colleague's parent might be ill, you're not going to go and tell another colleague, oh, by the way, so-and-so's dad's sick. You just wouldn't do it. You just don't talk about that third party unless that person's explicitly given you permission. And then there's the obvious, don't reference point things that you're not really that understanding of. Education is key. And I think there's a way of asking questions as well. There was something actually I saw this weekend, which was Lizzo. I don't know whether you've seen this on Instagram, where a photographer.
Demi Lovato?
Yeah, Demi Lovato, right? And
Sorry, keep talking. I loved it though. Yeah.
So this photographer's like, hey, so Lizzo, is this aimed at her? Is this aimed at Demi Lovato? And Lizzo, without skipping a beat, was like, hold on a second. They refer to themselves as they. So stop saying that. That's they. And it was like this just immediate allyship of, hold on a second, you're using a reference term that you haven't educated yourself on. So if you can see that somebody's opened up enough to say that this is either a reference or who I am or what I am, never turn around and discredit that, especially in another forum. Does that make sense? Like, there's a way of handling yourself and holding yourself where education is key throughout all of your interactions.
I think that then is a really great bridge into the last topic, team, and that is, most organizations have multiple layers of management. Therefore, there are going to be dynamics where you do have a manager or a supervisor and a team. Are there specific tips or thoughts about that dynamic where a manager can either facilitate allyship and inclusion or the opposite? And are there here, as we go out, just any thoughts around whether it be resources or ways that teams can operate or managers can operate in his or her or their way of being a manager that's optimal? And I think that sort of like tips and tricks for managers or thoughts about that dynamic, the team environment, the team dynamic, would be a really great kind of topic to go out on here. Any thoughts from either of the two of you on this? And then we can kind of wrap up.
Yeah, sorry, my brain just went on a tangent then too. I started thinking about all these other things too. Like I started thinking like Heidi would think strongly about, like, it's really important to have a great diverse team, right, as well, for the offset, right?
Start there. Yeah, start with recruiting a diverse team that puts you in the situation in the first place to have these.
Yeah, and I started thinking about that, and I was like, that's not even my area. That's Heidi's. I should shut up because that's her area to talk about. But then, start with hiring a diverse team, right?
I love that.
Fantastic that you think that way, though, because you yourself are so important within the people ops. It is at that very core. So it's wonderful to think that even you you know, not doing my role, know that actually that's how we breed that culture, right? And that's just another Sneak value, which is we just think that way.
Intrinsic in our value, totally. But yeah, so that aside, starting with the right foundations of a really awesome, diverse team, but also secondly, I mean, I work with managers a lot, and the best answer here is to genuinely care about this stuff. And I mean, I work with a lot of managers, and I work with a lot of managers who, dare I say, have only become managers because I think it's the best way to earn more money. And my advice to you is don't become a manager if you just want more money. There's plenty of other ways to earn really good cash. Like if you want to create a psychological safe environment for your teams, care about it. And that means being a really good manager, caring about your people, taking genuine interest in them and their pains, concerns, getting to know them, learning what, you know, educating yourself on your people, regardless of whether they're LGBTQ plus or, you know, anything. It could be ethnicity, it could be so many spectrum of diversity, right? Get to know them, take a genuine interest, and foster that continued sort of diverse knowledge and sharing with your team. I think that creates a safe environment.
I love that. Just create that safety through curiosity and through creating the environment, through interest, through caring, through compassion. That's powerful advice. Heidi, do you have organizational things to layer on top of that?
I would just say educate yourself, right? We have so many resources ourselves, but for other people who might not have those within their company, set them up. Don't be afraid to start, like we have Sneak resource groups. Give people the opportunity to start their own community internal to yours, where you welcome that, you know, set up these practices for non-bias, set up practices for changing mindset. It's all about education, because absolutely caring is at the core. You've got to care enough to educate yourself. You can't just go in blind with thinking, you know, yeah, we can change things, because that's not always going to be the way to do it. You've got to educate yourself on that path to success. And we've certainly got it here, but I think other people need to work on how that would work for them in their company.
So it's being willing to adopt a caring, compassionate perspective as a manager, and it's being willing to humbly educate yourself and not put the burden per se on the members of your team that maybe you're coming from a diverse background or a less traditional path into their role. It's about educating yourself on their context, perhaps to ask the right questions to create that dynamic that's going to flow and not dim lights and not shut people down. Any other thoughts in closing about allyship, team? We've got, you know, what will be a lot of people that listen to this video. Or any tips as we go out on what allyship really does require? I'm hearing care deeply. I'm hearing educate yourself. I'm hearing create you know, kind of equity and equality and inclusion in your systems and around yourselves. But are there any other things or books or tapes or providers or organizations or anything that we need to reference as we go out? No pressure. Just wondered if allyship and living that allies lifestyle gets one more tip from you as we go.
Yeah, there's always going to be references, right, where you can look online. So there are communities and websites that you can look at. So there's a lot to do with trans. So for people who suffer from transphobia or going through transitions for themselves, that is one serious place that I always look to start, because that's a huge embodiment. I definitely would look at that as a resource, but that's more UK based. However, there's going to be international forums everywhere that you look.
Makes total sense. So basically just get online, no more excuses. There's plenty of resources available with one Google search. Yeah. And I think that's valuable advice. Nathan, anything from you on how people listening can be better allies, or any other tools, resources, or organizations that are good to mention in this space?
I could, yeah, I mean, as you can hide the internet's for them. I mean, we're talking to a global audience here. Look for what you need, right? There's so much on the internet, really good information. Talk to, I guess, your networks as well. Try to foster that cohesive environment there through that. And I mean, we were partly lucky in some respects in that, like, some of the stuff grew organically in our organization as well. So really, I guess, nurture that stuff. If you get like grassroots popping up anywhere, you know, don't weed them, just try and really nurture them, and I guess be that allied platform where you open this up for them.
Oh, I think that's tremendous advice. I think almost every one of our organizations, be they 3 people or 300,000 people, have that momentum, have that allyship, have that safe environment in our organizations. We just need to foster it, and we need to spread it, and we need to institutionalize it and scale it. So I really appreciated this conversation. Thanks for jumping on in where I believe is Australia and the lovely UK. Here in California, we're glad that you could join us, and certainly stay in touch with us here at Sneak. We look forward to working with all of you that were sweet enough to listen to this panel today. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Bye.